everyone, I'm Stacy Swiderski, CEO and founder of Family Source Consultants, and welcome to our Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast. In this third episode of the season, we're exploring family building options for individuals affected by cancer. Joining us today is Megan Scherer, co-founder of Worth the Wait charity. Our Chief Operating Officer and Client Care Focal, Cara Maple, dives into Megan's inspiring journey to parenthood and discusses how surrogacy and egg donation can bring hope after cancer treatment. Worth the Wait charity provides fertility grants to help make family building dreams a reality. You can learn more by visiting our website at www.familysourceconsultants.com under the Intended Parents drop-down. Now let's get started.
Welcome to the next episode of the Bringing Dreams and Miracles Together podcast. I am honored to be joined by Megan Scherer with Worth the Wait charity. And rather than me take time to introduce you, Megan, I'd love you to introduce yourself, and then we'll just jump right into your story after that. But Megan, tell us a little bit about you and kind of what brought you to Worth the Wait charity.
Well, thanks for having me, Cara. I appreciate it. So Worth the Wait is really personal to me and my husband, Mike. And we founded it in 2021. And I'm the executive director and co-founder. So my job is really, running every program that we do, from education to our family building assistance grants. And the thing I love most is, working with the patients, and we're helping young adult cancer survivors who are trying to have a family, and just the hope and joy that we can bring to them is really, really meaningful.
I think that is, obviously so special and beautiful. I love that you're doing that. There are so many that are touched by cancer, and just having that path and someone to guide them, I think is super important. But it's personal to you for a whole different reason than maybe it's personal to me. My mother passed away from metastasized uterine cancer. Much later in life, she was able to have children. But I was thinking, what if that happened when she was younger and she couldn't? What could she have done? And I can't think of anything when she was younger that was out there for her. So to have Worth the Wait available for so many now is wonderful. So would you be willing to share your story and what made you found Worth the Wait?
Sure. So my husband and I were both 26 when he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And so it really wasn't anything that, we were prepared to do at age 26. We were,
No.
learning how to pay our own bills and start at the very beginning of our careers. So I became his caregiver. And he went through surgery, and then he had a reoccurrence a year later and needed chemotherapy. And so we were really lucky living where we live in Ohio. We've got a really great cancer hospital. And so the care team there talked to us about fertility preservation. And that's something that we're really, really grateful for, because we didn't really understand what it would mean to start a family after, but I just had that little bit of hope in my back pocket as we were going through, all the milestones of, treatment and then survivorship for Mike. So then a few years later, when he was in the all clear and we felt like, okay, we kind of made up on some of that missed time during those, cancer treatment years, we started trying to have a family. And I was like, I'm not waiting around. Like, I just have this feeling that something is not going to work right.
Mhm.
So I went like right away to my OBGYN. I was like, just do everything you can just to check
Full
everything
workup.
out.
Yeah.
And so anyway, started on some Clomid and some drugs like that to see if that would help, and it didn't work. So we ended up progressing, and we did about 2.5 years of IUIs.
Wow.
We ended up using all of his frozen sperm. And unfortunately, we just weren't really counseled well on what we should be doing.
Mhm.
And so then we kind of were at the end of the road, and we're like, oh my gosh, when have we spent enough money? And, none of this was covered by insurance. So we actually started researching adoption agencies because we knew like we want to be parents. We're going to do whatever we
Mhm.
takes to make this dream happen. And so we said, okay, we're going to research adoption agencies and we'll do one last IUI. So on our seventh IUI, I became pregnant with our son, and the rest is history.
Oh my gosh. So that was a very condensed version of your story. So you're diagnosed with oh, that is very hard to say. Testicular cancer. We can edit that out, hopefully. At 26, I mean, that's got to be completely overwhelming in itself. Was that a routine exam? Was something, I mean, because that's not something that most 26-year-olds have to, you don't think about your self exams, you don't think about that. So let's do a little bit of that first, because I think it's important that we educate others to think about that. So what made you guys find that first?
Yeah. So testicular cancer is the number one cancer that young men are likely to get diagnosed with. Now, when I say likely, it's a very small percentage of
Yes,
men that are actually diagnosed with testicular cancer. But if you're young and you're a man, that's
that's
what you would have.
got it.
So Mike actually, it was around Memorial Day when he said to me, hey, something is not right. Like, I feel this lump. I am feeling weird in my chest. And, he was like, it's been a few months. I haven't said anything. I was scared, but I'm Googling it. And testicular cancer is coming up. And, he doesn't have any family history of testicular cancer. There's other cancers in his family, but nothing that would put him like at higher risk for that
Mhm.
type of diagnosis. So really he was lucky because his mom is a nurse and worked in family medicine for a really long time. So she and the doctors in her office, stress the self exams and the importance of them. So he was lucky that, his parents had talked to him about that.
Yeah.
And then, don't know that they need to be doing that.
Hmm.
Um, and so he luckily, thanks to his mom, having some friends in the medical field locally, they were able to expedite. First, you have to have an ultrasound, and then from there, they schedule a surgery to remove the tumor, and then they can tell you the exact pathology. But what was weird is the makeup of his tumor was one of the types of cancers in it was producing HCG, which is one of the
Ah,
pregnancy hormones. And so his chest was very tender, like a woman in her first trimester, maybe, who's
wow.
producing a lot of HCG. So that was an interesting kind of connection, and that's why he had that like chest tenderness and pain.
Yeah. That is interesting. How long you said he had surgery and then he had another incident a year later where he had to go chemo. How long was it before you guys were in the clear? And at what stage did you do the fertility preservation? Because that is so wonderful. I think we need to normalize that conversation with young people, regardless if they're going through cancer or anything else, because you just never know. So how long was that battle? And then when did you guys really finally get to focus on fertility preservation during that?
Yeah, so when he first met with an oncologist, one of the things he said was you need to bank sperm before your surgery.
Oh, wow.
So he banked the sperm. He went one time, and now we're finding in counseling, if there's time, go ahead and do a few visits
Got it.
to the sperm bank because more vials better if you're, able
Yeah.
to produce and everything. And then he had surgery. So he was diagnosed like around Memorial Day, had surgery in early June. So it moved really, really quick.
Wow.
And then he had about 11 and a half months of surveillance, had the reoccurrence. And then for an entire summer, he had this really intense chemotherapy. It's called BEP chemo, and he would go 5 days a week. And so it was 12 weeks, but it was a very intense 12 weeks with the amount of chemo and how
Hmm.
hard. And it was really gonadal toxic. So different chemotherapies have different abilities to impact your fertility, but his combination was very toxic to, his sperm and reproductive system. So finished that. And then honestly, like there was so much to process emotionally and just to like try to regain what life in your 20s is like.
Yeah.
We really didn't even start talking about wanting to have a family probably like a year and a half after he finished chemo. And really now I've been to some conferences recently and they're saying for his type of chemo, like you really should wait a minimum of 2 years. Um, and so by the time, we got into treatments, it had been well into the 2 years. But, we know so much more now. And,
Yeah.
oh, and I also forgot to mention, he banked before the chemotherapy as well. So he
Okay.
going twice and he had I think 3 or 4 vials or something like that that we ended up paying for storage for quite a few years on.
So it sounds like about a total of 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
battling that. And then now you're close to 30 or you're around
Yeah.
30 and you do a full workup. And thankfully it sounds like you were healthy and you were able to carry and that you had eggs. So you didn't have to go any alternative route there. But you mentioned that you went through multiple years of IUI and it was the seventh one that took. Was that the last of his banked sperm? Because it sounded like you were at the tail end. This was like the final shot.
Yeah. So what was interesting is he did have some sperm still in his samples. So the beginning, like the first, I don't know, maybe 3, I think IUIs, he did fresh sperm, but it was like not good quality and there were
Mhm.
issues with it. And they were like, yeah, we'll just keep doing this. We'll just keep taking your money. It's fine.
Got it.
Like,
And you didn't have anyone to educate you otherwise, so you just kept wanting it because you wanted a child.
right. And we're like, okay, well, it's only $2,000 for an IUI. That's so much cheaper than IVF. And, we can make that work a little bit easier. So yeah, we ended up using his frozen sperm before our 7th IUI. So we were doing like a combination of fresh and frozen. We're like, yep, let's
Okay.
eat it all. And so the 7th one was truly a miracle. And we wanted to have other children. So we ended up doing IVF a few years later after our son was born. And Mike at that time had found a really good urologist who specialized in male infertility. And he was like, yeah, there's no way you guys ever should have been doing IUIs.
Wow.
And, it is truly a miracle that your son is here. And, it just,
That just makes it even more like emotional because
yeah.
you get to the very end and then the fact that, and what specifically was the reason why you shouldn't have been doing IUIs for those
Just
listening?
yeah, for the sperm count and the quality. So
Okay.
I think a conference I went to recently, they said typically for IUI, you want to have about 10 million sperm. And I don't remember what we had, but it was not that.
Okay. So you now have a miracle child. You have this amazing, beautiful son who I've met, and he's absolutely a doll. I love that. And then now you've got your child, and Mike is doing well. How did Worth the Wait come to be?
Yeah, so after we went through some failed, we did some more IUIs, we did one round at IVF and it didn't work. And we were like, okay, you know what? We are so grateful to be where we are today, right? We have this child who clearly is a miracle. Mike is healthy. We're enjoying parenthood. I think one thing for individuals and couples who go through infertility is I think they make the best parents because they've worked so hard to get where they are and they have that gratitude. And yeah, every day is not easy being a parent, right? But I think you take some of those moments, you just treasure them more because you know the path that you went down to get there. So we really had all those feelings and we said, you know what? We want to teach our son how to give back and tell him how lucky he is for the life that he has and the life that we have. And so it was during COVID, and I remember we were on a hike and we were like, what can we do? Like, let's be creative. And then we said, you know what? when we were going through all those fertility treatments, there was nobody there to support us financially. We could have really used that type of support. And so we said, okay, we're just going to put some money away and maybe we can help 1 or 2 couples a year, just personally. And Mike shared the idea with a friend who's an attorney, and he said, oh my gosh, that is an idea for a nonprofit. Like, let me help you set up a 501c3. So Mike's friend did that for us. And Mike has a background in finance. I have a background in marketing and PR. And we were like, you know what? We have the skills needed to start a nonprofit. Let's see where it goes. And so we started to get the word out locally, and the cancer hospital where Mike was treated was like, wow, we're really interested. We absolutely have young patients that need help. And originally, we were really going to be just about family building grants. And then as we heard from the young adult community of cancer survivors and patients, we found out that, wow, preservation is such a necessary step,
Yes.
especially for females, and egg preservation and embryo creation, before cancer treatment. Those costs are just so high. So our program really evolved over time. So as we heard preservation stories, we were like, yes, we want to give grants to people preserving. And then we heard from people who wanted to build a family through surrogacy. And we were like, well, why would we not support that? And our very first grant was for a couple adopting. And so that immediately, was on the list of family building. But then we heard from people who wanted help with egg storage or long-term sperm storage. And we remember that. I mean, my parents paid for sperm storage for a few years for us.
Yeah.
So I remember what that was like, and that, emotional trauma of getting that bill every year. And so that really grew our program. And then we started getting involved with ASCO, that's the American Clinical Society for Oncology, and their advocacy work. And then we were like, wow, we need to educate patients about this. We need to talk to, regulating bodies about this. So Worth the Wait has really evolved over the last 3.5 years. And it's just been really neat to see, the type of support we've been able to help to the adolescent and young adult cancer community.
I've watched it grow just in the last year that I've known you, and I've been honored to obviously know you and just be a part of just a small part of it. I've seen you at the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. You were recently honored there. There's a lot that your organization is doing that I think is so important. You're not limiting young cancer patients or survivors options for family building, and family building starts with preservation, right? So I love that you've expanded to that. Even those of us who have not necessarily struggled with that, fertility preservation, and we mentioned earlier, is so important in your young age because you just don't know later. And to be able to have an entity that you're diagnosed and now what, that's just going to help guide you and educate you and be there for you, I think is so incredibly special. Stacy, our founder and CEO, many years ago, back in 1998, she had precancerous cells that were very, very concerning. So she just had a partial hysterectomy. When she wanted to grow her family, now what do? You don't have the ability to carry, and that's how she turned to surrogacy. And much like your story, she didn't have support. She didn't have anyone. This is pre-Google, pre-internet, organizations like yours that really were there to help. And that's how Family Source was founded. So I know when she heard about your organization, she was personally touched, obviously, and there's that connection. I think what's super important is that if they want, they need an egg donor because they don't have eggs anymore, or if they need to preserve their own sperm or eggs, or if they need a surrogate, or if maybe they just go down the path of adoption, there's no limit with your organization. So when you're out there educating people, do you go to conferences with professionals? Do you go to conferences where cancer patients and survivors can learn from you live? Do you have workshops? How do you get the word out to both parties? Obviously, you need to partner with agencies like ourselves for surrogacy and egg donation, hospitals, clinics, but you also need to speak directly to the patients and survivors. So tell us a little bit about your path, both directions.
Yeah, so with patients, we are doing a lot of education by partnering with other nonprofits serving young adult cancer survivors.
Okay.
So there's lots of great groups that we've partnered with. Elephants and Tea is one of our favorite nonprofits. They do psychosocial support for young cancer patients. And so in 2025, we're going to be doing a series with them about mental health and family building, which we're really excited about. But we've partnered with a lot of different nonprofits to just get the word out about fertility preservation and inclusive family building. So being able to talk about egg donation, sperm donation, surrogacy, adoption, people just want to know that there is hope. And truly, there is so much hope available. The other thing I love to tell people about is embryo donation. Most people don't even know that that is a way to build a family. But if somebody does want to carry and they're able to carry, it's really inexpensive. And if they can't carry, it's also a great way, to incorporate surrogacy into your journey to growing a family as well. So really partnering with nonprofits has been helpful to reach the patients. In 2025, we are going to go to some more patient-focused conferences. So I'm excited about that. There's one called Stupid Cancer that we're going to be going to, that's all patients. And then next year, we're actually going to be going to the San Antonio Breast Cancer Conference, which will be in December. And there's a lot of patients that attend that one as well. And as far as educating and communicating with providers and clinicians and people in the fertility industry, we go to a lot of conferences to network that way as well. There is a really vital role that some cancer institutions have, and it is called AYA, so adolescent and young adult, social workers, and adolescent and young adult fertility preservation managers. And so those are two pretty unique roles, but there's probably, I don't know, 100 of them out in the country around serving these patient populations, and they are very well connected. So you meet one and they introduce you to three of
Yeah.
their friends. And so there's a few conferences where there's a lot of the AYA, support teams there. But then I just do a lot of networking virtually because people are all over the country.
And so I know a lot of our hopeful parents when they come to us because they need to turn to surrogacy or they need an egg donor. When they come to us, a lot of them ask for organizations like yours. How can we get help? Is there anyone out there that can help us through this process, either financially or just educationally? And whenever we have young adult cancer patients or survivors coming to us, we obviously point them your direction. We've recently put you out on our website. Actually, it wasn't very recent. Let me backtrack. I'm going to rephrase that. We're going to cut the recording. So when young adult cancer patients survivors come to us looking for guidance or just an organization like yours to help them, we obviously point them to you. You guys are so special to us and you mean a lot to us. We have your website linked under our grants page. However, we also put your information out occasionally in our newsletters or we just share on our socials because I think it's important that maybe they don't think about looking directly for you, but they come to us first and we want to be able to share our mutual patients with you to make sure they're getting the best support in their family building journey. So stating that, talking about kind of how they can reach out to you, that's kind of the next step. What are maybe your grant cycles? How does someone get in touch with you to learn more? Do you have a newsletter they can sign up for to get education? Is there a class you offered? Kind of how do you connect with hopeful parents on their journey?
Yeah. So we're sharing a lot of information on our Instagram account, which is Worth the Wait Charity. And then on our website, if you go to worththewaitcharity.com, you can look for the request help link, and that outlines, we have two different, types of grants, like I mentioned, the preservation and then the family building. So it's got all of the dates and important milestones and requirements on there. But really, I encourage you to follow us on Instagram because, if you're a cancer survivor who is interested in just learning more about resources and other opportunities for mental health, we share a lot of partner information as well. So it's really a great way to just stay current and connect with other survivors too.
I love that. Do you have support groups that you send hopeful parents to that you directly engage with, or one that is sponsored through your charity?
So we don't sponsor or hold a support group,
Okay.
but there is a nonprofit called All Paths Family Building. And they have so many amazing support groups, but they specifically have one called Cancer and Family Building. And they meet once a month virtually. So I send so many people there.
I love that. We are actually a sponsor of them, and we love that organization as well. They are doing wonderful things in the world. We actually had the pleasure of being a sponsor at one of your events recently. You had Jeep Off Cancer, for those of you listening. It's the actual Jeep, the vehicle, and it was all about obstacle courses and just fun times and essentially a car show for Jeeps. A lot of the Jeep community is a very tight-knit community, and we all came together in support of that, the Worth the Wait charity, and just your mission and your goals. And that was held in Amanda, Ohio at the end of September of this year. And I know we were able to raise how much, Megan?
We raised just over $40,000.
I think that is incredible. You have already scheduled the event for next year, and it's going to be the end of September again in Amanda, Ohio. It's going to be even bigger and better. So for those of you listening who want to get involved, or maybe you just want to show up to the event and participate and have fun and do a little bit, even if you're not a huge supporter of Jeeps, that's okay. Be a huge supporter of Worth the Wait charity, and we will absolutely see you there. I'm excited for it. We're gonna meet more with Megan over the coming year to talk about that event because Family Source is not going to let it go without being a part of it again. We're super excited. Megan, I personally want to thank you for just all that you've done for young cancer patients and survivors. I know it was born out of your own personal experience with your family and your family building. And I think that makes it even more special. I am looking forward to see just even more that you and your organization are going to do in the coming years. I can't believe what 2024 was for you, and I'm excited for 2025. But to close this episode, I just love to ask, is there anything you want to share with our listeners, hopeful parents, young adult cancer patient survivors, anything at all, just about you, your charity, or their hope?
Yeah. Thinking back to, when I was in the midst of fertility treatments and, those early mornings at the doctor's office waiting to get my blood drawn or my ultrasound, even though there were faces around me in the waiting room, I still felt so alone. And I just want people out there to know that you're not alone. And it's so much easier today to find support, whether it's counseling, a virtual support group, you following people on social media that are also experiencing that. Like there is such a community in infertility and family building that you are not alone, and don't go through this without having people to rally behind you. So just don't lose that hope. And there is a bright future ahead.
I think that is said perfectly. So you can visit worththewaitcharity.com, familysourceconsultants.com, and either one of those websites can take you to organizations like All Paths Family Building and get the support you need. But if you reach out to any one of us, we'll all be there to help you on your first steps. So thank you again, Megan, for joining me today.
Thanks, Cara, and thanks for all the support. We loved having you as a sponsor at our Jeep Off Cancer event, and looking forward to next year.
I cannot wait.